Welcome back to another episode of Real Chums, where chatting about movies feels like hanging out with friends. I'm your host, Marcel, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Danny.
This week, we continue our discussion on superhero movies not based on comic books, with the 2004 film The Incredibles, directed and written by Brad Bird, starring Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, Samuel L. Jackson, and Jason Lee.
In this episode, we're going to discuss our love for Michael Giacchino and his score, how this movie is a masterclass in pacing, and the fact that Disney would never make a movie like this again. But before we roll that intro, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode.
Follow us on social so you can join in on our conversation about The Incredibles or any of the movies we've done. And if at the end you loved it, we'd love it if you left us a review. Now, let's roll that intro. Question of the day. We gotta go with the classic, man. Capes or no capes?
That is a really good question, dude. I'm going to say no capes.
No capes.
Unless I'm like the leader of a league of supervillains that are doing my work, then I'll have a cape. And if I can fly, obviously, so that's my power.
You feel like if you're flying, you gotta have a cape.
But as a good guy, I'm going to go with no capes. And I think for most powers, you don't really need cape.
For a long time, I was always for capes.
Yeah, me too.
Right? And then
These are cool. Aesthetically, they look awesome.
yeah, but I love that they make fun of it.
Yeah.
No capes. Wind turbine 82 or whatever it is. To me, if I wasn't gonna do tape, the idea of a trench coat or like a jacket type thing.
Okay.
Unbreakable a couple of weeks ago was a poncho, but to me, one of my favorite characters, superheroes, is Static Shock, and he's just got a cool vibe, dude. I'm here for it. I love this like jacket thing. It's great.
Spider-Man Noir, right? He has the long trench coat.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
I can dig it. I mean, you got to fill that trench coat inside pockets with like gadgets and bombs or whatever.
Straight snacks, bro.
I mean, you're up in the middle of the night fighting crime. You get hungry.
That's right.
Mickey D's isn't always accessible.
I don't have time. I'm fighting crime.
Yeah.
Gotta keep stash. No, you're fighting somebody and they're like, are those Pringles?
Oh, my Pringles, man.
Oh man, it's so good. All right, well, we gotta hop into this movie because Incredibles is absolutely Incredibles. Okay, Incredibles is incredible.
Yes.
Everything about this movie is
Phenomenal.
fantastic.
I love this movie. What's your experience been with it?
Don't know if I watched it in theaters. I want to say I didn't. Maybe I did. I don't remember. What I do remember is that this movie became a movie that instant love.
Yeah.
I always loved Iceman from X-Men, and having Frozone like coming in there, creating all cool stuff, and then you've got growth of the family, the like dynamics of that. You have like as a kid, you're like, man, I wish I was part of a superhero family. As an adult, you're looking at this family and you're like, no one has a playbook, not even supers. It's just phenomenal. And at the end of the day, what really just solidifies this is the freaking score. God, this score is legendary. And I don't know what more I could say other than it is pure movie magic.
Yes. Look, Michael Giacchino is one of my favorites. This was my introduction to him. He's gone off, obviously, to do the Up and Ratatouille. He did one of the Mission Impossibles. Star Trek. My favorite, Star Wars Rogue One. He took on that one. He is just an incredible composer who is able, in my opinion, to add and support the world building and storytelling of any movie. I think oftentimes you have a great movie and a great score, and they just coexist. Whereas he is able to really like just mesh everything in and have the story be have his music be a character in his movies. Feels like, and Incredibles does that perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
We played this in band in school, and I love it just because like I always wanted my teacher to like give us like music from films, and he would always say no. And then when he handed out the sheet music, and we're like, we're doing The Incredibles. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, you've never been cooler in your life than this very moment, right? Like I love this music. I listen to it on a monthly basis. I listen to this score.
Oh, I really wanted to play this in marching band.
Yeah.
This is a score that like just warrants being on the field, doing a formation, just blaring the different pieces of the score, and just I
can't remember if we played it in jazz band or if it was I'm fairly sure it was our symphonic band.
Yeah, usually this,
but it was great because like we brought out the drum kit, right? And so like one of the percussion guys was like on it, and it was like, yeah, we're pulling out the drum kit in our symphonic band and we're doing it.
It's always fun, dude.
It's always fun.
Okay, we'll talk about it more in a little bit, but walk me through why is The Incredibles important?
So this came out in 2004.
Yeah,
and I want to just bear with me with this, Danny.
I'm here.
This is 2004. This is 2 years before Disney officially buys Pixar. Okay.
Oh,
you've had Toy Story 1 and 2, Finding Nemo, and Monsters Inc., Bugs Life, and that's what Pixar's had. Okay, Incredibles, and then the next movie isn't Cars, and that's after Disney buyout. Sure, it was in pre-production and in production before the buyout, but this is a unique time to be working on a Pixar movie about superheroes and pre-Disney. And you see that a lot in like the themes that this movie is doing and like its approach to it. I strongly believe that Brad Bird approaches as what's a live action movie I can make that I would want to make. I can't for set pieces, budgetary reasons, whatever, and do it animated. And this is it. It's beautifully shot. It's beautifully edited. And I want to talk about some of the edits that really stood out to me this last time. Or cuts, I mean. But it's such a unique landscape in animation, in just the history of Disney and Pixar, for this movie to have been released.
But what are some? I mean, it's had woes, right? When it first released, there was like this movie was beloved.
This movie was beloved right from the beginning.
Get-go.
Yeah, I mean it had a hefty budget. So budget of $92 million. Okay,
for animated,
Yeah, and gross worldwide it did $631 million. So, and even like its opening weekend, $70 million. Like this movie did really well for Pixar, and just for animation as a whole. And I think people overall loved it. 2004. So this is right before Batman Begins.
Yep.
We really haven't had
superhero, like what we have classified as superhero, like the superhero genre.
Yeah. Like
passion hadn't been yet there. And I think what this movie provides was like, I think what you said is like, what if we made a live action superhero that had beef, had meat to the bone?
Yeah.
What would that feel like? What would it look like? How can we make this that resonates for everybody? Right? Not just a comic book lover or someone who is, quote unquote, a nerd, or just adults, or just kids.
Because this was pre-Disney, I think it was able to have that approach.
Yeah.
Right? I think oftentimes and keep this in mind, like, this is the first Pixar movie with human characters, right? We've had Toy Story. Yeah, there's Mom and Andy, but like it's not their story.
Yeah.
Bugs Life, no humans. Finding Nemo, there's some humans in there, but like our protagonists and our main characters are humans. And this is the first Pixar movie to do that. And I'm not saying like they drew them, which wasn't the intent, to draw them realistically. That's not it. It's a very unique animation style, very unique to Pixar. But it's the first time that they're doing this, and they decide to do it with superheroes.
Mm.
They don't do it with an up style or inside out. They decide to do it with superheroes.
Yeah.
And I think that is so unique and such a fun approach to decide to say, look, we're going to venture out to do human characters. Let's do it with superheroes.
Yeah. We're adults now. Well,
Yeah.
Since what? This movie, we were kids. We're now adults with kids. How is this movie, like, when you sit down and you look at this movie, do you feel that they've done a good job at depicting family dynamics?
Yes. Look, and I love how as a kid I could relate to the kids, right? Of course, right? And now as an adult, like these themes of just like aging, of midlife crisis, of just like not finding fulfillment at times. It's extremely relatable and it's extremely well depicted. And they take these themes, and again, as we've been talking the past couple of weeks with these superheroes, it's essentially a character study of a dad who's having a midlife crisis with the background of superheroes, right? You could even go. I was reading a review as I was preparing for this, and I saw it on IMDb. But like someone said, this is American Beauty meets the Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which American Beauty, right? The dad is having a midlife crisis, goes out and has an affair or whatever, and like, but like it's almost that approach, like a midlife crisis for, and this is definitely obviously Bob's movie. We're following his story, whereas the second one is more Helen, but like that's what it is. This is a dad having a midlife crisis and like doubting like his worth, his value in society, in his family, and what he's supposed to, his purpose, and how he finds that again through the things that he's meant to be doing.
Yeah. Watching this time around, I think part of it, because we watched Chronicle, we watched Unbreakable, I think the opening sequence hits so much harder. It hits so much harder this time.
Yeah.
Because of the things that like we've been viewing. And I think what you said, like this is a character story on a family with the backdrop of superheroes, is absolutely like it is what it is. This is what it is, and why like it is top S tier filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's a movie that when a new animated movie comes out, parents want, right? They want to take their kids to go see a movie. They want the kids to have fun, and you want to have fun.
Yeah.
And to me, like the opening sequence solidifies so much for us. It gives us just enough exposition. It gives us enough world building that we're bought in. But it's not like we're having to like get up to speed. We're just dropped in, right? Like we say this all the time. We love being dropped in. We love like having to kind of like feel what's happening and kind of like pull things from there. But more importantly, we get this. It's not shy about being an adult, like adult friendly with the flirting with the robber. But also the fact that like there's so many other elements of this opening sequence that like with Incrediboy coming in and we're sympathetic to this person who is so obsessed with a character with a superhero, and the to me with the ADHD and whatever, that there's always a pressing thing that I'm like, oh, it's okay, I got time, I can make this happen. You're late. But then completely being juxtaposed to tragic events and having to be thrown into mundanity.
Oh my gosh, that the opening scene, right? Like you could do a full breakdown analysis on how to introduce characters, how to introduce conflict, and how to perfectly leverage exposition, all within 7 minutes. And this movie does it perfectly, right? It sets up, it introduces our characters, it introduces the world we're in, right? By name dropping all these different superheroes. And just like Even like the villains, right? Having Bon Voyage, Monsieur Crédible. Like I just love only
your ugly suit.
I love just Bon Voyage. Like how funny. Anyways, and then like these sequences of events that lead to this what do they call it, the superhero relocation program, right?
Look, can I just make it quick? I would have loved to have been a parent watching this in theaters for the first time, where we have this amazing opening sequence. We have this like gotta save the cat trope, and then having to still save the day, having this little thing, like intriguing. They're getting married, right? We don't know. Like they've been supers, and there's this world, to immediately being said he's being sued.
Yeah, right. That's a good point, because like my kids have seen this like maybe twice, but they're enamored with Jack, right? Because that's like the closest to their age, right?
Yeah.
They don't get what's happening. But that's a good point, and I would love to know like what it was like for parents, because this movie, like, it gets dark and like it hits really like quickly, right? The whole sequence of where Helen is on the plane and or they're on the island, she's like, you know those cartoons you watch on Saturdays? This isn't like that. These guys will kill you.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Bird and team, they've all, like, with the music, with the writing, with the scenario, like, we don't, as a kid, I remember watching this and like, oh no, they're in danger. But as an adult, I feel more as I've grown, the professionalism that comes from voice actors and the animators and their skill sets in helping to depict on one end, this is just a movie, but on the other end, that this is the frantic nature of the mother.
Yeah.
And protecting your children and what this means, and like, because it's not live action, I think it makes it like coming back to your statement that like this movie is a depiction of like what we should, like 100% what we shouldn't like, or what could be really what are you trying to do in live action, but it's like, I don't know what I can do, but this is what I can do. Because that scene alone could be traumatic for someone who's like, we're the age where they're like they're going for with Pixar.
Yeah.
But because it is what it is some of the best built tension that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You've got Mr. Incredible captured. He's we have what's the silver hair lady again? Anyways, the henchwoman.
Miss not Miss, it's
oh man.
Myster, no.
Yeah.
Mirage.
Which, who I think would be a great live action Mirage is the girl from Mission Impossible. No, it's not Mission Impossible. The Fall of House Usher.
Carla Gugino?
Yeah. She had silver hair, and I was like, Mirage vibes. I'm pretty sure there's like a whole Twitter thread, I'm pretty sure what the actress did the shows. Anyways, really great. But she's got the silver hair, and just it would have been great. But to me, but you have, Mr. Incredible, he's hearing this, he's like tragically like wanting to save his family, but he's like captured. And you've got Elastigirl who's got her children. She's mad about the whole situation and having to deal with this crazy stuff, and seeing the kids seeing their mom in this like professional, super like
in a different light that they've never seen her.
Never seen her. Like, like the fact that like, you told us never to use your powers. Well, I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
Like this, like everything she's been trying to tell her kids not to do, and for the certain reasons, having them to push them into this light, which I think is a big growth for her and for the kids.
Yeah. I think from a storytelling, it's so crucial to put your characters like that, right? Because I've been in those positions where my mom's like, no, don't do X, right? Whether it's like, don't touch the stove. And then I get to the age where she's finally like telling me, go flip the tortillas, right? And I'm like, no, you told me not to, right? I could burn myself or whatever. No, go flip them or else they're going to burn, right? So not as life-threatening, but I've been in that position where my mom's like told me not to do something, and then over time she tells me to do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's so fun and unique because it really positions our characters to then, one, have conflict, but it also like to eventually have a moment to then lean on each other and grow as individuals, because it gives Violet that opportunity to maybe not fully succeed at building that force field, right? But it gives us, we have a payoff later as they're on the island at night and they're talking like, that was scary, like that was hard. And how she then starts practicing her force field capabilities and abilities, right? Which then pay off later in the movie. It's so powerful. And I think, this is where I want to talk about the cinematic techniques here.
Okay.
Because the editing in that, you don't see that in 2004 in animated movies.
No.
We see it now in Spider-Verse has done great at this, right? But like this tension of cutting back and forth between Bob, who's been caught and has to hear his children or Helen asking, to not engage, right? And
disengage your children on board.
Yeah, and then cutting back and forth to her, the close-ups.
Yeah, dude, the close-ups of Mirage, of Mr. Incredible.
Yes.
Of
cutting to the kids, right? There is so much happening in this sequence, yet it flows really well.
Dude, I'm glad you brought this up. I was actually thinking about like this movie is a masterclass in pacing.
Yes. Yes, because there is so much happening in this movie. I'm sure if you go through like the Wikipedia page, there's a lot from the beginning to, there's a lot happening, but you never feel like it's bogged down.
No, you never feel like it's slow. It's like too slow, or that it's like you're just like moving through like the speed of like you're in an Oppenheimer, right? You're just like boom, 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 moving on to the next things, right? Like because they're trying to depict something, right? This movie this time around, I was like, per example, we have the opening sequence, and then we cut into being relocated, and he's an insurance agent.
Yeah,
he's Bob's super depressed, and I think one of the perfect example of this is like he's they're at the dinner table. She Incredible Girl, what's her first name? Helen asked Bob, trying to have the conversation about Jack like getting caught on camera, and he's like, wait, you didn't get caught? And you see him light up with something that feels the thing that he doesn't want to be suppressed and that he's proud of.
Yeah.
But then having, realizing that it has to be shut down, right? And him escalating, the family dynamic being escalating, and Helen trying to pull, like, I think of our generation of fathers who felt like only working was the way to show that you loved your family.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there were more parents out there that didn't do that,
Yeah.
but like I think for most America, fathers depicted you work and you get money and you provide and you let the wife take care of the situations, and you are disengaged. Mm-hmm. I need you to re-engage. And having this crazy traumatic situation that then gets paused or slowed down, not paused, slowed down with the take of Samuel L. Jackson Frozone coming in and saying, "Oh, we're here for bowling," and leaving, and having this small moment of like this discussion, right, of things that he's doing to like that hiding, and he just wants to go bowling.
Yeah.
Right. But then we pick up again.
Yeah.
Right. It's this beautiful roller coaster throughout the entire film. We get later on with Syndrome and having the in the cave and having to depict like, listen, we are here together. We're going to be okay. We're trying to figure things out. And prepping us for the next sequence that we're about to experience. But it doesn't ever feel like it drags in a sequence, right? It always feels like every moment, every scene, every cut that we end up having for emotional benefits is motivating.
It's motivating, and there's a sense of like reward to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that sequence when they're on the island and Bob has escaped and like the kids are running around, right? And the hovercraft discs, whatever they are. And for them to then come together and we get that iconic shot.
Oh,
the panning around, right? And all four of them are in their poses. Like it's just so great. But also like going back to that pacing, like it's so interesting that then we, like you're talking, this roller coaster of pacing, so to speak. We slow down a bit as we venture into the island, and then we find out, or I guess prior to that, we find out the real master plan of sending the droid over and destroying the city, and Syndrome coming in and saving the day. But like, I love that the third act, and sometimes, not that I forget that there's that fight sequence in the third act, but like, it feels well earned to get there.
Listen, this time I'm like, this reminds me of the amount of things that happen in Aquaman. Aquaman in both films have like a crap ton of stuff that happen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel as bad. It nowhere on any level does Incredibles feel like you're watching 4 movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
We talked about in Chronicle last episode, check it out, that like setting up for the next arc.
Yeah.
Right? This movie, I don't know, I would not necessarily argue, but I would say like I would say that this doesn't necessarily fall it follows it's debatable whether this is a full 3-act structure.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To me, I feel like we could break it down into different phases.
Yeah.
But they all set up, they're all well transitioned. Right? But I mean, like there's a ton of things happening.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up Aquaman, because I was thinking of Man of Steel.
Oh.
Man of Steel, we have that entire sequence where he has to fly over to the other side of the planet to destroy the terraforming machine. Okay. And then you have the whole like fighting with that's happening over on Metropolis, right? Yeah. He takes that down. They come back. Okay. And everyone got sucked into the Phantom Zone except for Sod. And then it turns out, oh, there's another 15-20 minutes of fighting through Metropolis and destroying, right? That movie, and even when we talked about it on our episode of Man of Steel, like it felt a bit jarring of like, we had this massive set piece and action sequence in Metropolis, and then just kidding, it's not over, we're going at it again. It felt jarring. Mm-hmm. Never does it feel like this. We have this huge sequence on the island, several sequences on the island, and then we slow it down, but like it transitions really well. And I think a lot of the reason why is because we're continuing to have character development.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas like Man of Steel, it ended. Sod complains about like, I was bred to be a general, to protect my people. Now that I have no people, let's jump into a fight. No, whereas here we're having these conversations of like, I thought you were cheating on me, essentially, right? Like the kids are here, and like you ran across water, like this excitement from Bob with Dash, and like we're having payoffs that were set up earlier that help transition from one sequence to the next.
But not only that, like I think part of it is like the reason why is because Bob's arc ends with Syndrome, right? Yeah. But the family's arc doesn't end until they go to the city and they're like, we are together on this. Mm-hmm. And we need to be together. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this together.
Yeah.
Right? But having those arcs, like these setups and the arcs weave together throughout the entire film that really helped. Just phenomenal how what they've done with. I could easily see like this they wanting to break this into two parts, with a cliffhanger or something, and then like I don't know, maybe I don't. I just I truly appreciated the way they went about with pacing of this film. Do you want to? Should we talk? Let's talk about the character growth. I think that not only character growth, but let's talk about the depiction of like government with superheroes. We don't often get that. Often it's like superheroes like they follow their own rules and they just like government agencies. The other show that I feel like does a pretty good job with this is Invincible on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
They have a kind of a big role in with the government agency kind of being connected and trying to help recover. Similar to what Incredibles is, just not as dramatic. But I like this character growth and like the depiction of like what they have to deal with with the aftermath of the suing.
It's interesting because I think over the years, most recently, right, we had Captain America Civil War that kind of touched on this, right? What role does the government play in regulating these superheroes? Batman versus Superman attempted to do that, right? As Superman goes to court, and how do we control, quote unquote, control this guy, and is he on our side or not? So I think it's interesting that again, this movie in 2004 addresses, and not that this is new, right? We had seen it in comic books, right?
Yeah.
And I think even like the Justice League animated series had a really good run on like government regulation. But I love that the movie does it in a sense that we appreciate everything you've done. And then after millions of taxpayers' money over these legal cases, they've decided to shut it down. Yeah. And now you're all going into hiding. I love this commentary of the government leveraging and using resources when it benefits them, but when it's over to just cast out the program, right? And you can reflect it and leverage like the whole space program now, NASA, right? Like all the money that we put into that and like the resources, and our top priority is this. But then like once we got out there and we realized all the money we were spending, it's like, let's cut back on this. And do we really need to be out there and like put out all these millions?
We could be teleporting to the moon already.
or put out all these people out of jobs, right? Like that impact that has on these individuals whose jobs was there. And now what do I do? How do I relocate myself in society and in my career after such a big movement, right? It's so unique that that's the approach. Whereas like a Civil War says, we're not going to put you into hiding or get rid of you. Rather, how do we leverage you for the time being and regulate you?
Yeah,
right?
Like you don't get you're not free willy. Right, you are under our control, and I think what I appreciate about this is that like how both Helen and Bob's response to this, right, and how much it is something that, to me, part of it is like this fact that like, who are you without, the thing that made you what you were at a time in your life. Like I think of like athletes, right? Athletes who I interviewed. There was I worked with a client who did a podcast, and they had a person who she was like a large track athlete, and as she was finishing her career, she was like, "What do I like? What happens after this?"
Yeah,
right. You get to a level, and it's like you might be done or whatever, and it's like, well. But what does it mean after? What is this thing? Now, obviously, she went on to do CrossFit, and that's where she pivoted to. But for a lot of individuals, you can really lose yourself. Like you were doing, or like maybe you were in a career and you were let go or completely derailed or moved from one project to another one where you didn't fit and it just didn't work out. And now you're stuck in this space that you feel like you could do more. and contribute more.
Yeah.
On the other sense, like, for Helen, like having to deal with the burden of like, what are you trying to do? Do you have to are you there to help your husband try to like find himself, or, like your partner, I'm going to say partner for this, like just your significant other of like, do you have to carry them when they're feeling depressed, or like, how do you work together to find the cohesion? And then not only that, but like the whole arc of like Bob hiding his growth, going back into be a superhero, but also the like the potential risk of being cheating.
Yeah, because there's definitely flirting between Bob and Mirage, right?
Yes,
there's that flirting, and that, again, I want to like reemphasize just the risks this movie is doing as an animated movie pre-Disney, which we would never see that again.
I don't know. Yeah.
And again, like things that as a kid when I watched them, just
no, it just whatever.
Whatever. Dash is running on water. How cool is that, right? But like these character choices that can have major implications for this family,
for the tension that it causes you as a viewer.
Yeah. From the moment that he accepts the job and he makes the decision to say, I'm going on a business trip, knowing very well, us as audience, that he is not doing that and that he's lost his job.
Yeah.
Right? And to hide that from Helen. And he goes on, he starts working out, he starts feeling better about himself, the new car.
Yeah. But like in that, he's showing her love. He's found himself through.
He's finding fulfillment yet again.
Yeah, through something that he was reminiscing on, right?
And something that he knows Helen will not approve of.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the cheating that's happening here.
Yes.
Which is such a great story technique to put into a story about a family.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He is technically cheating, right? He's lying to her.
Yeah.
And making her believe one thing when in reality he's doing a completely other thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what's for her to then find out what's really happening, which we'll talk about my favorite scene, but it's this, like when he is on the island and he's sneaking back into the base and he's finding out what Kronos and like the whole plan, and Helen is at Edna's.
Yes.
Right? Like, do you really know where your husband is? Right? Like,
do you know where your husband
is? So then she, going back to the editing, this is my favorite scene. Well, I'm just going to talk about my favorite scene real quick right now. It starts here. The editing of cutting back and forth between him seeing what the computer's showing him, all the different superheroes that have been killed. We cut back to Helen calling work and finding out that her husband was let go months ago.
Juxtaposition of like this
realization of his friends dying and like what that means versus the juxtaposition of her realizing that this realization that her husband has been lying to her, right? And it's cutting back and forth, and then she presses the button to like find out where he is, and like bing bing bing, and like the bubble, those black bubbles then catch him. It's such a cool aesthetic too.
It is cool. He's awesome.
Yeah,
he's a cool. We'll talk about it in a second.
So I love this. Look, I'm not the greatest. I'm a good husband. I'm not the exemplar.
You're not a trophy husband.
I'm not a trophy husband.
Wait, no.
That's not what I'm trying to say. What am I?
You're not like an epitome of like a wonderful, like a perfect husband.
Like, that's it, right? I've made mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. to the point where my wife has been like, wait a minute, you told me one thing when in reality it's another thing. And it's like, you, right? And so like, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Right.
But part of it, like, part of it is like for you connect to the fact as like, as a, on the father end, like you're looking at that, you're like, you are trying to, you want to achieve more. You want to you feel like there's something more that you can do for the family or for yourself or whatever, that you like, well, if I do this thing, then I'm maybe reliving that thing again.
Yeah.
And this goes for not only husband but for wives as well. Like, like to any aspect in a relationship, you get to this point where maybe the mundanity is the specialness, the beauty of what a relationship is gone. And you forget that like it is a muscle that you have to continue to work at.
Yeah.
To have it be strong. And when you stop to lose sight, a thing that I heard from somebody who I really admire, he's like, your children aren't the most important thing to you. Aren't the most important thing as a husband. Your wife is the most important thing in your relationship. But I grew up in a home where like we were the most important thing, right? The kids were taken care of. It's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Like at the end of the day, like the relationship between the spouse, that's what matters. Because if that can be there, no matter what hardships come, kids will see like
kids will be resilient and find the strength as if the parents have each other's back.
Yeah, because if you see your parents go through a hard thing, like my dad tried to, he was, the whole thing is like, well, we try not to fight in front of you, but like, if you fight in front of your kids, not like but like dispute each other, and you overcome that, they can see, oh, I can have an argument with somebody, I can disagree with somebody, and we can come to a terms of agreement.
Yeah. Let's talk about that scene, the argument. He comes back from tearing down a building.
Yes.
Knocking down a building, right? And he sneaks in, he's eating something, and then Helen is awake, right?
I love that scene.
Such a great scene. This is the first time I see like in animation a like two adults, a husband and a wife, arguing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think like, do I see that? Have I seen that?
No, I mean, like, I think you might have seen, like, there's The Simpsons, but it's not, like, to depict a character as dumb. It's just, like, a natural situation, right? She's like, you were going to be, I was going to be late. Yeah, okay, this, like, why were you out so late?
Yeah.
Right? What happened?
And him, like, trying to, like, dodge the question and, like, talk his way around it.
Yeah.
Right.
But also she knows that like something is definitely up, because he's the most engaged than he's been for who knows how many weeks. Right. He's actually answering the question. He's not like he's eating, but he's like
playing it off almost.
Yeah.
Right. Which you and I'm going to come back to this. You don't see that in a Disney movie.
No.
Right?
Disney movies don't even have parents.
And I was going to say most Disney parents most Disney movies, the parents are dead or whatever, right?
Almost all. I mean, the only ones is Brave, one that Brad did.
Did Brad do that one?
He's not. He didn't do it. He's the creative director. He's like the creative, the head of creative. He helped shape the story. Okay,
sure, yeah. But which came out after this, right? But like. How I love that scene, because it's like, yeah, we see them argue and the kids are kind of hiding and the parents say like, okay, Dash and Violet, like, come out, right?
Yeah.
And even though they don't come to a resolution, right? The fact that the kids witnessed that, saw it, and that mom Helen says like, okay, it's too late, it's late for everyone, let's all go to bed.
Yeah.
Right. And to see like parents go together, right? You won't see that in a Disney movie.
No, they just kill the parents.
They'll just kill the parents.
Let's not deal with real growth of what we could teach people. Let's just murder the parents in a tragic accident and let the kids have to figure things out by themselves.
I'm looking at you, freaking Frozen. Like
That's exactly what I was thinking.
like just
let's just bury it.
So like it's so unique, and I love that you mentioned The Simpsons, right? Because Brad Bird was a executive consultant on The Simpsons for 10 years, and The Simpsons, as goofy as it is, there are those episodes where you, especially earlier on, you are concerned if Marge and Homer are going to get divorced. Right? Even in the wackiness and goofiness and the comedic,
Simpsons?
Whatever it is, there are several episodes where you're like, oh, is Homer going to have an affair? Is Marge going to have an affair? Or are they like going to not make it?
Yeah.
And that's what Brad Bird brings to his movies.
Yeah.
To his animated movies. To make him adult, but also to meet the needs of a child.
He tells real human stories that are relatable, right? And then he sprinkles on magic, right? To help it be less heartbreaking.
Okay.
Not less heartbreaking, but like less like initial impact. But as you watch this more, as you watch his films more, you see what he's trying to tell. Like I think Brad Bird, what I think about The Incredibles is that when I think about being a filmmaker, this is what I think about wanting to have. I want to tell a story that has impact, that could change, that give people hope and an understanding of something that they might be facing.
Yeah.
But not be in a way that isn't in your face, that isn't like trying to force a message. We're just trying to tell a good, fun story. But as you sit back and you really look at what's happening, you're renewed on like, it's okay. I'm not perfect. Neither are they.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it's maybe I need to like be a little less hard. I need to be a little more forthcoming about what's happening. Or, hey, at the end of the day, like, as a family, we can do hard. I often tell my kids, like, how are things, like, it's okay to do hard things. Like, we do hard things. And it's not that, like, good job. It's like, I'm glad that you worked hard, right? Keep up the good, like, keep working at it. I love seeing you progress. Just remember, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay.
It's okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, these are the things that are there, right? I think Violet is probably one of my favorite characters out of in this thing. Her desire to want to be normal, and unsurety of like, in her family, like, I mean, we don't know about her. I mean, they've had to move quite a bit, with all the incidences. But like, to me, I think Violet's character is one that like, she has so much strength, but is because she's the oldest and sees as the oldest, you have this level of like, feel like you have to take a little bit of burden of what's happening around your family.
Yeah. And
to her, she is trying to, they don't depict it too much, but I find that it's just enough of like, she knows what's kind of like, something's happening, and she doesn't, she just knows that like, that she has to be like, the scene with Jack or with Dash and her and finding suits. No, before they go on the plane.
Yeah.
They're
at home. And he finds the suits. Yeah.
Like, that scene is like, for me, I'm like, if this was about the kids, that would have a whole nother sequence of like, well, what are we gonna do? Well, we need to go with mom, right? This leading up, which I appreciate. This is not about the kids. I mean, it's about the kids, but like, at the end of the day, like, the growth that happens in her finding herself as she realizes that her parents, they're in it for the long haul. They're not going anywhere, right? And stepping up for her family. And then the fight scene on the island. It's just, I don't know, phenomenal stuff.
No, and I mean, she has that line where she says, um, I think your dad's in trouble, there's trouble with your dad. And Helen says, and then Violet says, "You mean dad's in trouble, or dad is the trouble?" Right? So yeah, like she notices these things.
Yeah.
Something that Dash is just completely oblivious to, which is fine.
Yeah.
Right. But because she is the oldest, and because she's more reserved, and definitely someone that just is observing, right? She's reserved, but also very observing. She picks up on these things. And so I think like it's such a she has such a unique character growth, especially the idea that and I love that Brad Bird decided to give these characters powers that like resemble where they are in life, right? Dad, who has to be strong and keep the family together, is given super strength, right? To keep his family up. Mom, who is spread thin and being pulled in all these different directions, has elastic powers, right? Violet, who is invisible to everyone, literally has invisibility powers, and Dash, who's just super active, high active kid, is gonna run, right? So like taking these elements and these these characteristics of the characters is so unique and so fun. But Violet's arc and everyone's arc in this is so fulfilling in the end. For her to then push her hair to the side, right? A small decision of like now she's embracing who she is, not quote unquote not being quote unquote normal, but embracing her powers, her family's situation, and saying like, yeah, this is who I am and this is who we are, and I'm gonna ask this guy out.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let's quickly talk about Syndrome.
I am Syndrome.
Dude, I don't know if you can ask for a better, more like he's a great villain.
Super great villain.
I think the part of it is that like we've talked about these not is like we are sympathetic to like we don't follow him for most of the movie, right?
Yeah.
But the reveal is glorious.
Dude, I remember as a kid when that was revealed.
Right?
Like I do remember. I was like blown. I was like, oh no.
I know. I remember too. He's the kid.
Yeah.
I'm your biggest fan.
Like, and then just a quick like edit to like him younger, and then yeah.
With this, with Unbreakable, and with Elijah, and we have Andrew from last week from Colonel. Like, we are sympathetic to this little kid who just wanted to be part of he wanted to be connected to his hero.
Yeah.
And showcase, but that like he is completely derailed and mocked by the person he cherishes the most. To then, showing him up, right, to a degree, and that it requires Bob to do the thing that he said he did, is work alone, to not work alone in order to overcome Syndrome. And like to me, like he's the fact that he's ended up killing so many supers, right? Like is like a huge feat. He's like he's made. I think the costume design is the black and white. I don't know.
Big ol' S. Like it looks so cool.
It's so cool. And then the fact that he's trying to make himself be the hero. Bob is masquerading, is lying to Helen, and yet Syndrome is trying to lie not only to himself but to like the people, say that he's justified in doing this so that he can have his glory. It's about like Bob wants to live the glory days, and Syndrome wants to have the glory.
He wants to have the glory, but he also, right, his commentary on we don't need super powered individuals. I can save the city with my technology, right? Which is what he goes on to say, like, even as a kid, he's like, I don't need superpowers. Look, I can fly around, right? And so for him to say, like, I don't need what you have. I can be respected. I can have the glory by being myself when you didn't accept me for being myself, right? And that's unique commentary that follows on into the sequel about the need for superheroes, but we'll get to that one when we discuss it. But he's such an awesome villain. He's funny. The character design and like his origins and to be embracing.
He's also dangerous. Like,
and he's dangerous.
Yeah, like he is dangerous, right? It's alluded that there's something happening we don't know, and the fact that we get this reveal, and that he like fights some of the that we know of, some of the strongest heroes.
Yeah.
In this universe, in this world, is impressive. He's there's a lot of cool things happening.
Yeah, and the fact that again, he won't hold back. He kidnaps a child.
Yes, dude. Yeah.
He kidnaps Jack and with the idea of racing him and having him become a villain, right? Like that's what's even additionally more threatening to him, that when his plan fails, he says, screw it, I'm going to go kidnap your son and I'm going to raise him myself, right? So like, again, you'll never see that today in a Disney movie, but like he goes there.
Yeah.
And he's willing to do that.
And it's dark. It's a dark scene. Like,
yeah. Because Jack's sleeping.
Yeah.
And like they come into I love just the visual there. They're all running into the house. They push open the door and then just the camera just pans over and there he is with the baby just shh.
Yeah. But he's like it's starkly the way they light it. Like he's kind of it is broody.
Yeah.
He's menacing. I don't know. Just good.
I want to, and I think I want to finish with this thought. I think often, and we might have some listeners who are Pixar, great studio, right? I think often we credit Pete Docter as the person who revolutionized Pixar after after Lasseter left or exited out. Was forced out. And Pete Docter is incredible in giving us stories that are both for adults and children. But I think that foundation of Pixar started with Brad Bird in telling with this movie, right? We hadn't had a movie that really addressed these themes for both kids and adults until we had The Incredibles, and then for him to go and do Ratatouille, which is just such a beautiful, like heartfelt movie, right? And then you have the successes of, because of this foundation that I believe Brad Bird established, then you have the successes of Up, of Inside Out, and everything that we've had over the years, right? Brad Bird is just phenomenal. His ability to say, I'm going to make a James Bond superhero-ish movie that I wish I could make in live action, but do it in animation. I think it's just, we don't give the man enough credit.
No, I mean, Tom Cruise saw it.
Yeah.
And he was like, I want to direct my movie for Mission Impossible, right? And honestly, it's probably that Ghost Protocol, I think it is.
Right? Yeah.
I think it's probably one of the better Mission Impossible movies. Like, there's some like, I think there's a lot of elements of Brad Bird you feel, right? But I don't, like in the special features of that film, Tom specifically says like, I was blown away with what he did with Incredibles, and he's like, I want him to be. He's like, he was a little apprehensive. Brad was to do a live action because he'd only done animation, and there. But I think,
well, I mean, I like that you mentioned that because Ghost Protocol that's number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the movie that kind of introduces the big stunts.
Yes.
In what we now associate Mission Impossible movies to be.
Yeah.
Because Mission Impossible 3 had the one where he jumps from one building to the other, but that was all done with CGI.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the first time where we are putting Tom Cruise up on the Burj Khalifa, or what no, Burj Khalifa. No, the what's the building?
I don't know what it is, but is it the wire, right?
Yeah, and he's climbing, and then like, right, the tallest building in the world, right? And so like, this is Tom would not have been able to achieve that had he not had a visionary director like Brad Bird to help him do that.
Yeah.
So kudos to Brad.
Kudos, Brad, man. True story. I just don't want to wrap it. I guess this is my final thought. I had downloaded this movie and because we were going on a trip and that's all I had left because I forgot we were going to my mom's, and my daughter was like, "Oh, you only have The Incredibles." I'm like, "Yeah, watch The Incredibles." I don't know. I don't really like it. I'm like, "You don't really like it? I don't think you remember. Just watch it." She's like, "I don't know, Dad." I'm like, "Look, that's all you got. So what are you gonna do?" Okay. Halfway, like she's getting towards, we're getting to the fight. I'm like, how's it going? She's like, okay, it's kind of good.
It's kind of good.
But I mean, because they'd watched it when around the time your girls are watching them, right? But now she could resonate with Jack, or I mean with Dash, or with Fight, and start to see some like the coolness, the fun aspects of what this movie brings. And it just made my day.
That's awesome. Because I did try to watch this with my kids. And I'm like, oh, let's watch because they refer to it as Jack. Because whatever. And they're like, no, not Jack. Let's watch Bluey. I'm like, freaking Bluey.
30-minute Bluey.
Which these latest episodes. Phenomenal. We could do a whole episode on just
the whole season.
A whole season on Bluey.
All right. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed today's reminiscing of The Incredibles and how this is favorite movie, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Would you say this is one of your favorite Pixar? Like, would this be your favorite Pixar movie?
Yeah.
Your favorite overall Pixar movie?
I think so.
Okay. I gotta think of. I mean, I'm just a sucker for.
I mean, Up is phenomenal.
I am a sucker for Inside Out, but like,
I don't know. To me, like rewatching this movie, I'm just reminded like this is.
Here are my top 3.
Okay.
In no particular order: Incredibles, Inside Out, and Soul. Soul rocked me to my core, and like,
interesting.
I know a lot of people. I think a lot of people like.
I mean, there's a trombone in the movie, so like it was already up there for me.
I think a lot of people like just missed out on Soul, but like Soul is.
It's good. We
have
a Yodel card for Soul, and for a good chunk of time, my youngest, that was like the one she wanted to listen to every night, and I'm like, this movie,
just hits.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we would love it if you could subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're there, why didn't you just leave a review and share it with one of your friends? We would really appreciate it because it does help us get discovered.
More importantly, we want to hear from you. What do you think of The Incredibles? What's your favorite moments? What was it like watching the first time versus now? You can always connect with us on social at Real Chumps, or feel free to email us at your@realchumps.com. You can find me on Twitter at Marstrosity, MARZTROSITY.
And I'm at Rubio_TV. Join us next week as we continue our month-long discussion on superhero movies that are not based on comic book. Join us next week as we continue our month-long discussion on superhero movies that are not based on comic books with The Mask of Zorro.
This is a favorite of yours.
This is one of my favorites. Absolutely.
I haven't seen this in a while.
I'm pumped to talk about this.
This is gonna be fun.
This is my prediction. No, we'll just talk about it next week. We'll see you in the next one.
Later, guys.